Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation. Just wanted to give a disclaimer at this rate. Unfortunately, this is looking a little bit more like a TED Talk than a 5-minute presentation, so skip to the end if you want, but I think this is some pretty interesting stuff. Okay, so my name is Callie Rector, and my presentation here is about Homo sapiens. Who are we? I'm exploring a couple different topics in this presentation, but mainly curiosity, Charles Darwin, the soul. This is an apology for the uniqueness and specialness of human life. So, how are humans different from animals? If you've ever asked yourself this question, probably. The theory of Darwinian evolution mainly says no. Man's fitness or dominance allows for human superiority and civilization to exist. Inherently, we have no special value that sets us apart. Christian dogma and other religions believe commonly in the soul. Humans have souls, animals no. Soul is a spiritual being that exists inside our physical bodies, but not limited to that. And especially in Christian dogma, humans are given souls by God. So, Darwinian evolution and natural selection, let's just clear up the unknown here so we're all on the same page. Natural selection, abbreviated NS, is a real and observed phenomenon that Charles Darwin studied in the Galapagos Islands. So, in this phenomena, individuals with more useful traits survive better, passing down these traits, and those with non-useful traits will die and not pass down those traits. So that's called survival of the fittest. This explains many similarities of bone structure between animals, why we have different species of birds and breeds of dogs. So, in my opinion, if Noah had every single breed of dog on his ark, that would be a whole lot of dogs. The boat may have sank. So, personally, natural selection is a great explanation for why we have so many different kinds of animals, different subsets within these kinds of animals, and I think it's a super beautiful thing that we have that. So, theory of evolution says that through natural selection, all living creatures descend from common ancestors, in some theories that are more extreme, even unicellular organisms. So, from my understanding, the theory of evolution does not necessarily equate from recognizing the existence of natural selection, which many people have empirically observed through the years. Theory of evolution is a theory. Okay, so here we have Darwinism versus classical creationism. This is a Christian school. I'm sure we're all familiar with creationism. God created the world in 7 days. Adam and Eve were created by God instantaneously as humans. Humans are special and set apart by God to rule over the other animals, and the human has remained basically the same in form since the creation of Adam. Theory of evolution, possible that man is descended from rodents, and man rules over other animals because of his physical/mental fitness and dominance. Okay, so here's this interesting dilemma, which I named the zookeeper dilemma. So look at this picture here. What's kind of wrong with that? Well, if we're thinking about evolution, thinking about the fittest animal survives, the strongest animal survives, smartest animal, So this lion here obviously is in a cage. He is much bigger, much stronger than this funny-looking zookeeper right here. And yet, this zookeeper is asserting dominance over the lion because he's in the cage. But on a size to strength level, that lion would probably destroy this poor little zookeeper really quickly. So, something to think about. So, we're going to ask the question, back to this question, why is man physically dominant? Or why do humans exert dominance over other animals? Maybe it's not physicality. Anyway, so If Darwinian theory of evolution is correct about humans, then humans must have some trait that has allowed them to rise above other animals. Scientifically, however, it is very unclear what that trait is and what has allowed us to become quote-unquote dominant. So here's just some examples of what we are not dominant in. Man is not the strongest or the biggest. Man is not the smartest. Some animals possess intellectual capacity that we do not. There's this one study from University of Georgia that explains how monkeys outsmart humans on some cognitive tests. Homing pigeons, I think, have this incredible ability to detect magnetic fields. Obviously, we don't have that. Man is not the most popular. Billions of bacteria pervade the earth, and man is not the most complex. Even if you're just looking at the length of our DNA, some plants' DNA is 50 times the length of our genome. Okay, so yeah, wait a minute. We covered all these reasons that we might think why man would be the dominant race, but it's not. But we are dominant, right? So why? So while man is beautiful and complex, he isn't necessarily dominant in all aspects of physicality or neurological function. We covered that on the last slide. So this question is kind of a tricky one. One of my favorite scholars that I pulled from, John Polkinghorne, in 1998, argues that God is subtle and that the world is not full of items stamped, made by God. So we have some digging to do. Darwin suggests that the species that survives is the one that is most adaptable to change. Let's take a look at that. So, adaptability to change? Well, I think not really. Let's think about it. If adaptability is the driving force of evolution, then why are humans more skilled at adaptation than other animals? What about the dolphins? Don't they adapt, And if adaptive qualities instigate evolution, then it seems unreasonable to suggest that adaptability itself is an evolved trait, because it has to come from somewhere, right? If adaptability is driving evolution, it itself really can't be evolved, because then that would have had to exist in the first place. So, therefore, adaptability would seem to have stemmed from some other endowed trait that would have to be endowed to humans by something else. Like I said, traits can't really come from nowhere. There has to be a starting point there. So, us asking this question right now, what does that have to do with this? So, what's the question that we're trying to ask? Why are humans dominant over animals? We're looking at all these different traits. What does it say about us? So yeah. Do we need to know this? No. This is for this assignment, but I don't need to know this to survive. So why did I do all this research about this question, about these topics, about philosophy and science and religion? Why are we doing all this stuff? We don't need that to survive. Well, maybe we like it, maybe we want to, maybe we're interested in it. So do we think other animals do that? Arguably, humans alone ask these big, crazy questions about our lives, about the world, about nature, science, literature, all that stuff. Humans alone think big about things that don't really have any bearing on our survival. So, what is this at its core? I'm gonna call it curiosity. Alright, so we're gonna make a couple distinctions here. Many animals also exhibit curious behavior, but I wouldn't call that necessarily curiosity like humans have. So I'm going to make the distinction that curiosity is just simple curious behavior, i.e., example, a cat is investigating a new object in the house, your dog wants to look around a corner, not just domesticated animals, obviously. And divine curiosity is this kind of irresistible interest in things that do not have bearing on our existence. Why do we want to study the stars, So Pascal, the ancient philosopher, described this. He said that man is a thinking reed, whatever you take that to mean. So another one of my favorite scholars, physicist Michael Gillen, in 2021, argues that man alone is curious about gravitational waves, neutrons, and the quantum vacuum, regardless of the fact that these things have no obvious bearing on his gritty struggle to survive. Yeah. So, is divine curiosity the precursor to innovation, adaptation, creativity, and problem solving? Is this the trait that has allowed man to be dominant? Is this the trait that's pushing us to new heights? Well, I think it might be. Obviously, you can disagree. So, we have this trait, okay? We're going to assume that we all have this trait, this divine curiosity that makes us curious about a lot of stuff. So, we've seen this kind of trait in human beings, many ancient stories, especially in the Bible. Famous situation, the fall in Genesis 3. Eve is tempted by the knowledge of good and evil, and she eats the apple. If you think about that story, the fact that the apple represents knowledge, or it is knowledge of good and evil, why is that attractive to Eve? You know, her life is perfect in the Garden of Eden, God is on her side, everything's good. Why does she feel the need to eat this apple? Not even that the serpent was telling her to do so, though he was, but there was something in her that also must have wanted it. So, we see that there. We also have Pandora opening her box. She just can't resist. Lot's wife looking back on the collapsing Sodom and Gomorrah turns into a pillar of salt. Why did she have to look back? You know, she knew that the angel told her that she would have died or something, but she still does. So sometimes we see this curiosity, this divine curiosity, and we're wondering, is this divine, or is this just our extreme stupidity as humans? Another example, you're driving on the road. Maybe we experience this on a regular basis. There's an accident on the side of the road. All you want to do is look, but while you're looking, you're putting yourself in danger for also being in an accident. Charles Darwin had a quote about monkeys that, you know, if a monkey got drunk on brandy once and he had a terrible time, he felt sick the next day, he probably wouldn't do it again. But man, obviously we know how that is. Keep going back and back. Okay. So, on the other hand, we have curiosity that might be stupidity, but we also have this curiosity that can serve as a source of a connection to God, a connection to spirituality. So, obviously this curiosity, when we act on it, leads us to discovery, good or bad. And that can lead us to connect with God, spirituality, and a sense of the divine. Many scientists, many artists alike describe this. They're creating something, they're discovering something. They just get that intense awe of, you know, some kind of amazing discovery, and they're like, that is surely spiritual. I think it was Carl Sagan who said something just like that. Anyway, so Polkinghorne here, 2007, says, curiosity is allowing us to, through discovery, discern a world of deep and beautiful order. That's, you know, we're discovering God's intelligent design right there through science. He goes on, all these things that serve no material purpose, science, philosophy, art, you know, literature, all this stuff, they serve no end to our survival, but instead they sustain our spiritual and emotional survival, not our physical survival, which are two distinct things, which I'll get into a little bit later. So, makes us thirst for something more. And the object of that thirst, whether we know it or not, is actually God, our creator. Okay. So we're looking at this trait, divine curiosity, and we have to ask the question, because we're thinking about evolution, is this an evolved trait? So, the argument is no, because this form of curiosity is often detrimental to man's survival. We exhibit this sometimes in the form of stupidity. It is unlikely that this divine curiosity is an evolved trait. Rather, it seems that it must have been endowed by a creator, or put there by something, because it's illogical that this trait that keeps getting us in trouble since the beginning of time, although it's also, allowing us to reach new heights, is gonna stick around. Yeah. Also, okay, so if we're assuming evolution, which is obviously debatable, so we're assuming humans have evolutionary connections with other animals. Why do no other animals exhibit this divine curiosity? Because, if they were related, they would have maybe some extent of that. But it seems that animals do not have this at all. They don't practice cultural diffusion. They're not going to other species trying to learn what they're doing to make their ways better. They don't really care about learning from us. And it seems that their ways, their practices in nature have remained largely the same for thousands of years. So that's unlikely. Okay, so we're thinking about evolution. And coming back here, after talking about all this divine curiosity stuff, do you believe in evolution? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to give a specific opinion there. But I would like to argue that evolution is only half the picture. Anyone who takes evolution for the full picture of reality and origins of humans or whatever, I would argue that they're missing an enormous chunk. Even if it is true, it's only half, not even. So, here's where I'm making these distinctions between two different types of realities. Theory of evolution deals with physical reality, as does all science. God and religion deals with spiritual reality. These two are incredibly distinct, and they are both 100% real. Maybe one more real than the other, depending on what you like to think of it. But they're both important, and they both are true. They both exist. Okay. So, because of divine curiosity, it seems that man is unique from the animals, not by any evolved trait, is therefore set apart by God to dominate animalia and bear his image and possess a soul, seemingly. So, I want to make this very important point that man is both a physical and a spiritual being. We have body and we have soul. As people say body, mind, soul, but if you're thinking about our brain as physical organ, whatever part of our body rolls into the physical. So then we can distinguish these two different types of our realities, but we are one. We have soul and we have body. So one of my favorite scholars, John Polkinghorne, 1998, says that man is somewhere between ape and angel. I find that really beautiful and very true. Okay. So, to go on, evolution says nothing about man's spiritual reality. It's only the physical picture. Even if it is true, never the whole picture. It will never answer that question that we all want to know the answer to. Who are we? Perhaps God did something more brilliant. If evolution is true, perhaps God did something more brilliant than just create a static universe. Instead, maybe he has created a universe that creates itself, that is constantly evolving and expanding infinitely. Not only is he intelligent, but he created something that's intelligent, that is self-sustaining. That is pretty incredible. Okay, so now we're getting into the deep stuff. So, Genesis, the Big Bang, are both. Something that a lot of people may not know. The Big Bang seems like this big atheist idea. It was actually created by a Catholic priest who saw no contradiction with Genesis. Fully believing in God, fully believing in Genesis. He was just trying to theorize the truth about the beginning of the world. Additionally, the Big Bang Theory is strongly supported by Hubble's constant. You can research that on your own. I wanted to make this point about the book of Genesis. So if you observe Jesus in the Gospels, we've all read them, he's speaking in parables so often because he needs to explain these incredibly unfathomable, not understandable heavenly concepts in very simple ways to his followers that they'll understand. Like, you try to, like as human beings, you try to think about and, like, even conceive, like, what heaven will be like what it's like being in the presence of God physically. Like, we can't understand that, you know? We will never understand until we're there. Like, our bodies and minds can't handle that kind of information. So, Jesus is speaking in parables, and he's translating these heavenly concepts into language that is familiar to them in their society, so that they'll understand. So, getting a little deeper into theology here, if the Father and the Son are one, Trinitarian Lord, why would God not do the same, you know? In Genesis, God is trying to explain this incredibly large, unfathomable cosmic event to Moses, who has no idea, all he knows is that stars are these little lights in the sky. His brain could never grasp that. Our brains could never grasp that. So he's explaining creation in the context of human things. He could never explain it in God's context, because for him, 1,000 years is like a day. So instead he was like 7 days, you know? So for me, this makes sense. Genesis isn't meant to be read like a scientific textbook, and that the truth of science and the truth of religion are both true. But they're different types of truth, and somewhere in the middle of, you know, the unknown universe, they converge. Because we know that they're both true, but there's just different kinds of truth. We have allegorical truth, we have story, we have parable, and then we have the physical truth, and somewhere in the middle, I'm trying to get my hand on the screen, we have God, who is truth, and he is the source of all these other types, you know? Anyway, there's that. Okay, so that kind of spills over into this. Science and religion are kind of yin and yang. To understand the fullness of reality, science and religion are both equally necessary. Science is a study of physical reality, always in search of physical truth. Religion is a study of spiritual reality, always in search of spiritual truth. This is a very important slide. Like I said, truth cannot contradict truth, or else it wouldn't be true. Big surprise. So, when we look at scientific discoveries and we look at religion, we need to examine each of them in an unbiased manner and help them to support our worldview, our view of reality. If we know something is true in science, let's believe it. You know, let's have that enlighten us to greater truth rather than try to shoot it down because it doesn't match our preconceived ideas of what we think truth should be or what we were told that truth is. Yeah, so let's stop fighting rather than disagree all the time. I think that science and religion really just need to learn from each other. We're all intellectuals here, scientists, the theologians. We want to know the truth. That's just the big thing. We care about the truth. And only together are these two disciplines really gonna get us anywhere to try to put together this puzzle of reality that, you know, we all want to see laid out before us. We all want answers to these questions. So I kind of talked about this before. If God is reflected in his creation, discovery in science should enlighten religion to new amazing things about God and what he's made. In the same way, religion should help the scientists to grasp wonder, infinity, and beauty. Because ultimately, God is the source of all of that. So here's my references. So like I said, these are all great sources. I thank you for your time. Yes, this was pretty long, but if you got to the end, thanks. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something interesting or thought-provoking for you to think about. God bless.